So let's go ahead and get on into our first topic here in the weekly news roundup. And this is all about Google. And as we jump into this, I'm not going to say Google is absolutely horrible and should be completely and totally banned, because they do some good things and they have some useful services. The problem is they take too many liberties. And as I'm going to show you tonight, they want to take as many liberties as possible, and then when they get caught with their skinny dipping when the tide goes out, and then they get all sued, and then they end up paying a couple pennies they found on the ground to settle the claims, meanwhile walking to the bank with a couple $1 billion, and they keep on settling all of these lawsuits without any form of accountability. Then we are going to wrap up this section with a fascinating article that happened back in August that I missed, and I don't know how I missed it. Maybe I did glance by it. Maybe it didn't make its way into the mainstream tech stuff. But all that being said, as part of that, it gives us a warning about why we should not place too much emphasis on some of these services. And so my overall point here is that when we are using services like Google and like Microsoft and like Apple and like Meta, we have to use them with a deep knowledge of the warnings. It is like if you are using a little pew-pew. It is not like we need to ban it all. It's you need to recognize the danger of the device and take the appropriate steps to not harm yourself or others in the process. So what we're going to do here is let's go ahead and start with our first article. And this is the first one I saw. Google settles the privacy lawsuit for $68 whopping million, which I think was less than like 0.1% of their profit from this. This deals with that whole microphone conspiracy. So, you're over there and you got your smartphone, you're visiting a friend and you're sitting there at a table, your smartphone's there, you're having some latte or something at some Starbucks, going bankrupt, drinking their bad coffee, and you're just talking about, something random. And then all of a sudden you pick up your phone because you're completely addicted and you look at your scroll and wow, there's something there for what you just heard, And the thing is that, the lawsuit here alleges that Google's microphones has been spying on you and collecting all of that data and sending it to the advertising networks, which does make a lot of sense because that's been the thing for a long time. Is it Facebook? Is it Google? Well, in this case, it seems to be Google. And the problem is that this has been alleged and Google's like, well, we're just going to go ahead and settle this so that we don't go through the litigation. And one of the major reasons you don't want to go through the litigation if you're Google is because if you go through the litigations, you are making the assertion to say, we are not doing anything, and Google would actually have to open their proprietary source code to the defense. This is the funny thing about lawsuits. Now, there's ways around it. There's ways that companies can be like, well, no, we can't show them our proprietary code, and some judges fall for that and some of them don't. But in the letter of the law, if I say I have this allegation because it seems to be like 5 million people have all alleged they had a conversation about something over Starbucks coffee, they pick up their phone and the next thing they see is an ad about that conversation they just had. Google, what's going on? And if Google says that is not happening, we are going to defend ourselves in the court to prove we are fine, they have to open up that source code and we get to see exactly what's going on. And Google's like, don't look at that guy behind the curtain over there. And that really is the principle here. So this is the one tied directly to the microphone stuff, which, by the way, this is the very stuff that caused Louis Rossmann to start considering things about privacy. He logs into his Google account one day and sees these voice recordings going back 12 years inside the account. And of course, seeing that Google can use this information as part of the advertising stuff. And I got this fly. There's a whole van. Go somewhere else, please. All right. So they agreed to pay a $68 million settlement claiming that its voice-activated assistant spied inappropriately on smartphone users, violating their privacy. So the smartphone users accused Google, a unit of Alphabet, of illegally recording and disseminating private conversations after a Google Assistant was triggered in order to send them target advertising. Users objected to receiving ads after using Google Assistant misperceived what they said as a hot words known as false positives. Google, of course, denied any wrongdoing, but settled to avoid the risk of exposing their proprietary... They say they settled to avoid the risk, cost, and uncertainty of litigation. The court papers show they're subjected to false accepts since May 18th, 2016. So going back almost 10 years, if you had a Google phone and it woke up by you saying anything other than, hey, Google, or whatever your activation word is, now, of course, can you prove that? Then you can get a settlement, which will probably be, I don't know, maybe $8 to $20, as we'll see here shortly. So, of course, Apple reached a similar settlement of $95 million last year for the same thing. Not the B points out that this $68 million when they had an annual revenue of $350 billion is effectively like Google picking up a penny from the ground and giving it to the court and saying, okay, here you go. We're going to go ahead and give you this. Now, of course, this is interestingly significant because it is this week that the Apple payouts for the same thing Apple did hit the news. And so $95 million payout begins compensating users for Siri listening in by what you're doing. And people have said that they are seeing deposits as low as $8 per device. And the actual ruling suggests that it is a cap of $20 per device. So if you got 3 Apple devices, you could see up to $60. But most people are seeing that actual number closer to $8. So there you go. Apple made a lot of money. They stole a bunch of your voice data. They sent it to a company, and here is your, $8 to $20 per device. Thank you very much for making us a lot of money, you pleb. Don't worry. We'll continue to do this. We just won't admit any guilt because they're doing the exact same thing. They want to settle it without any guilt. Why? Because if you were to try and litigate this, they'd have to open the source code up and allow a whole bunch of people see what's going on under the hood going, well, that's interesting kind of stuff. And Google's like, no, we don't really want to do that. Here's a couple of peanuts, people. Here's a couple of pennies, It's like a wealthy guy during the Depression era walking outside and throwing pennies around, all the little boys running around picking them up. Yeah, I'm thinking of that scene in The Illusionist, right? He walks out of the theater and just starts magically throwing coins in this crowd of little beggar kids, and so that really is what we see. But then I remember seeing another case not too long ago, and I don't remember if we covered it. Maybe we threw it into a quick lines. And then I just did a little bit of research and I found 4 more cases just this year of Google settling privacy violations without admitting any guilt. So they were just sitting here settling, but saying, we're not guilty of anything. Just take a couple $1 million and we'll go. We'll take our $350 billion and head on off to the bank with it. So this was a case here that judge approves a $30 million settlement in YouTube child privacy case. So around 1 million legitimate claims from the class, with each member awarded $20 to $30 over Google's data collection practices. This relates to YouTube. And so of course, there is a kids version of the YouTube app, and where you're dealing with kids' data, you're not supposed to collect data and use that information. But it turns out that they were using this information. I think we did cover this. Maybe it was last week or 2 weeks ago. This was actually being collected by an advertising network arm of YouTube itself, and using the information collected on the children to market ads to those users. And so, of course, we're not guilty, judge, but here, we'll pay you $30 million out of our, $630 billion profits from last year. And then, of course, I remembered another one. This goes back. Maybe this is the one we did last week. I can't even remember anymore. There's so many of these, I can't even remember. This one, they agreed to $8.25 million settlement. that one's, I think this is the one we covered last week because this is peanuts. Over the Play Store children's privacy case. Okay, this is, I think, the one using it. I can't even keep these cases straight, okay? I read all these articles. I just can't keep them straight. So they agreed to pay $8.25 million to resolve claims it violated COPA. The tech giant allegedly collected information from kids under the age of 13 without parental consent. This had to do with the App Store usage. So, when they downloaded or used an app from Google Play Stores and had their personal information collected by Google. And, of course, this deals with the design for families, which is supposed to have this. But one of the challenges we're seeing is a lot of these apps had the basically, by the parent agreeing to use this, they might sign away their COPA rights. We just don't know. This is actually one that used AdMob, which is Google's system software. So the YouTube one was a different one from the Play Store one. But, they didn't, they're not guilty of that either. They just decided to settle it. And then there was this one where they paid $630 million. I mean, that one there is like 0.1%, right? Is that $630 million? Is that like 0.1% of the $630 billion? Am I doing my math right on the fly? So $630 million Google Play Store class action lawsuit. This one is from December. Of course, they did not admit any wrongdoing here either. They just like, okay, here, have a couple million more dollars, and we'll just keep our black box to ourselves. According to this one, from all 50 states, Google violated antitrust laws by monopolizing app distribution and in-app billing services. Of course, how are they doing? What are they doing about this monopoly law this time? Well, this time they're actually, restricting sideloading of apps to, firm up that monopoly. I am so happy that the government's warnings are working. You have no idea. Ken Paxton at Texas, at least he got into the billions. Okay, we got to give Ken Paxton credit for this one. He's, I think, in Texas. I think he's running as one of the Texas state senators in the next election. So if you guys are from Texas, you might think about voting for him. He's been doing a pretty good job. Ken Paxton secures $1.375 billion. Remember, this is a company that makes $630 billion a year. So that is... okay, so that means the other one was less. I don't even know. It's like a couple more peanuts, right? This was Google handing a $10 bill, not a penny. Okay, here's a $10 bill, Ken Paxton. All right, so this one is with Google. Which one was this one? Okay, tracking and collecting users' private data regarding geolocation, incognito services, and biometric data. So collecting a bunch of stuff that you didn't know they were collecting. Now, the incognito one, I kind of like, incognito is not a privacy mode. We need to recognize that, okay? We just need to. And that's one of those things that we need to keep in mind. Biometric data, collecting biometric data without your knowledge, that is a huge no-no in Illinois, maybe in Texas, but I know Illinois has the strongest anti-biometric laws in the nation. We should use that state as a model for some of this. And then geolocation. A lot of people, there were multiple places you would need to turn location on or off in order to properly turn it off. Of course, I always tell people, turn off location on your phone at all times unless it's explicitly needed. If you have some app on your phone that always needs it on for whatever weird service it's doing, uninstall the app. Okay, its purpose is to collect your location data to sell it to people. That is the case. Maybe it's like, well, I'm using Google Maps to drive stuff. Stop doing that. Major privacy violation. A car GPS costs $100 and it works better. Okay, that's what it's for. And it's a better screen. It's easier to use. It's easier to use when you're driving. It's safer to use. Do that instead. All right. But he gets this. Of course, Google also does not admit to any wrongdoing. He just says, all right, Ken, you got us. Here, we'll hand you the $10 bill because you've been doing a lot of neat stuff. So they did that one. Of course, no admission of guilt. Just take some money, go away, distribute this among the peons, give them a couple bucks each maybe, and we'll be good. All right. Now, here's the thing, is that if you're using Google services and you know what you're doing and you like those Google services, that's fine. Just be aware of what you're doing. But we have to have a wider conversation, particularly when it comes to your students. And the one that I missed this week, that I saw a video on YouTube just yesterday on this. And while I was researching this topic, I'm like, well, that's serendipitous. In fact, Ivan, if you can find that video and paste it into the comments, it's a really small channel and it looks like it's a human run video. I'm not sure if that one was AI or not, but I did research the content. It's really good. In fact, the EFF had some commentary on it. And it's a place it's nearby. I go to church in this area sometimes, which is very interesting. So I'm actually going to ask around when I get there if anybody knows this kid. It'd be an interesting conversation. Or the parents, probably better conversation. Of course, they're in the midst of a lawsuit, so don't know if they're going to say anything more than is available in the public record. But what happened here is a lot of your schools use Google or Microsoft services. In this case, at Marana High School area, this is they're using Google services. And the school district is issuing these Chromebooks, and these Chromebooks have not one, not two, but 3 different spyware applications installed on them. And the kid was, he got a bad grade on an English paper, and I don't know if he legitimately did a good job in it and it was just marked bad or what it was, but his mom suggests, hey, email your teacher and ask to talk about the grade. So the kid's like, great. So he pulls up his computer, he starts drafting an email. And then he is sitting in the room with his mother before school starts, before school hours. And as a joke, he types in a fairly uncouth thing. And he types a series of them, but the one that got him in trouble is he typed, gang, give me a better grade or I shoot up the school, homie. Okay, that's what he types. Now, never sent that in an email. He typed it down, speaking it as a joke to his mother in gangster voice, and then deleted the line. Within an hour, the school had sent a screenshot of this message suspending him for violent behavior. Okay. So, like Session Replay, which we've talked about before, Session Replay is a JavaScript library installed on many web pages, particularly web pages with contact forms or other data collection forms that will, they literally are keyloggers in JavaScript embedded on the website that as you're typing out information, even if you do not submit that form, if you start typing out information and decide afterwards, I don't want to fill out that form, the data you typed into that form is still submitted to that business anyway. That's effectively what they were doing. Constantly monitoring the screen on his computer while he is at home. Now, what the school's district, so they end up suing the school district because they would not overturn the suspension. They end up suing the school district for violation of constitutional rights like Fourth Amendment rights and violation of First Amendment rights, saying that this is an event that did not happen on school property and was not a credible threat. Now, there are actually a couple of lawsuits which EFF have highlighted. One of these lawsuits in Mahoney Area School District versus BL and through Levy, 2021, the court further held schools have less leeway to regulate speech when that speech occurs off campus. Importantly, the court stated that schools should have a limited ability to punish off-campus speech because, quote, from the students' perspectives, regulations of off-campus speech when coupled with regulations on-campus speech includes all the speech a student utters in a full 24-hour day. And so they cannot. Now, there's a further provision that suggests, yes, if it happens off school properties, but it's a serious credible threat, then yes, you can do something about it. But in this instance, none of those things happened. And there was actually another case which ruled, I think this is that primary one though, there were cases that effectively ruled that you cannot take this action against students outside of school. Now, the school is arguing that since he's typing this up on a school computer that is owned by the school, that no matter what he does on that computer is on-campus activity. Effectively, why? Because the Chromebook is on a VPN perpetually pushing everything through. Now, should he have typed that thing on the keyboard? Probably not. But does he have the free right to do that as a joke, a private joke between him and his mother at a kitchen table before school? Absolutely. This school district needs to lose this case. This is an absolutely horrendous case and a violation of rights. But I want to highlight a couple things. Number one, take every effort to not have your kids an account with these companies. What happens if you go to school and say, I'm sorry, my child cannot have a Google account. I do not agree to the terms of service of Google. Are they going to force you to agree to the terms of service? Because every Google account, you have to agree to the terms of service. What if you don't agree to the terms of service? It seems to me like maybe the school district should have to have a means around it. Secondly, you make sure that your kids are not using any school-issued devices outside of school. And as one of our supporters does, one of our supporters, his kids have these devices issued by the school. The first thing they have to do coming in is put them in a Faraday box. They don't enter the house. Boom. Done. Excellent advice. But I also want to give you one more warning because it happened to a kid I was mentoring. Because he had a school district that used these Google accounts and he had his own private computer. I know, I took him to the store to buy it, so he got a good one. It was his own computer, bought with his own money. And so one day he calls me up, it was a Saturday, and he's like, hey, I can't do anything on my computer, like something's wrong. I said, well, I'll come over and have a look at it. Well, I looked at it, and by simple nature of him going to the school, and I think maybe he gave it to an IT person at school or something, they actually embedded the school DNS and VPN connections perpetually on his own personal computer. So his own personal computer at his own house was constantly being monitored by the school district. And that is an absolute violation of privacy. If that were my kid, I'd be filing a lawsuit against the school for illegally wiretapping his laptop because he didn't know they did that. That is wiretapping. He didn't know they did that. And the only reason we caught it is because that happened to be a week that Google's education system was having problems. And so Google's school network was down, but their regular networks were still up, which was interesting. And that's the only reason we knew about it. So I took his laptop and I undid whatever nonsense they did, and he was able to use his computer again. So even if you are supplying your own computers, if those things have been to school, they might still have that spyware installed, and you need to make sure that you are doing the right thing here. And so this is a fascinating, fascinating case. I have no idea why I didn't see it earlier, but I didn't see it earlier. And that's just one of those reminders that we have to be diligent. I'm not saying don't use Google services. I'm saying Google is a for-profit company that seeks to make as much money with their resources, and their resources are your personal private data. And that is what they do to make money. So understand what they're doing, use the services consciously, and have separation so that you're not perpetually connected to Google in places you do not need their services. That is what you need to consider doing. So let me know your thoughts about all of that. I have the entire stream linked down below. Also, the articles here are linked down below as well. So thanks for watching, and we will see you next time.